Massachusetts. Mr. Suleymanov also holds advanced degrees from the Political Geography Department of the Moscow State University, Russia, and from University of Toledo, Ohio. Mr. Suleymanov has authored numerous articles and is a frequent presenter at academic events. He speaks Azerbaijani, English, Russian, Czech languages, and obviously Turkish. So please join me welcome Mr. Ambassador here.
I'll try to put it this way, the way so it doesn't slide. Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Taban, and thank you to the Turkic-American Alliance for inviting me. That's an honor to be here. Thank you very much. I know many of you are actually truly interested in Azerbaijan. If in this weather you're sitting inside, that's a big achievement. Thank you for being here. I will try to be as brief as possible, as our host mentioned a bit late in the beginning. So I'll try to keep it brief and then leave the opportunity for questions and answers. Well, the topic today is 20 years of Azerbaijan's independence and diplomatic relation with the United States and how it works. Now, well, Azerbaijan became independent formally on October 18, 1991, so it's, well, 20 years plus one couple of months. What have been done in these 20 years? There are very visible achievements. Azerbaijan today is a member of the United Nations Security Council. Azerbaijan is a major regional player. It has participated in a number of international initiatives. Azerbaijan today, for instance, plays a very significant role in providing security to Afghanistan, and also in terms of working with the American coalition in Iraq previously and in Kosovo as well. We have been a major provider of energy to Europe, for European energy security and all these areas. So you could say Azerbaijan has graduated to, let's say, at least from its early years of independence. But what matters more, I think, is what informs Azerbaijani position, what Azerbaijan is. I think that is important to understand, because by understanding what Azerbaijan stands for, then it's easier to understand what the region stands for and what each of our neighboring countries stand for. Let me go a little bit into philosophy. I think that's an important point. Azerbaijan has achieved what it has achieved not because we have oil, not because we're located where we are. We have achieved what we have achieved because from the very beginning, the fundamental understanding of Azerbaijani policy was based on certain principles, to which we stick, and that's the important part of it. Let me give a couple of examples. In 1994, what was signed in Azerbaijan, it was signed in September 20, 1994. It was called the Deal of the Century. It was a contract of the century, the largest single investment in the former Soviet Union, $8 billion investment in the offshore fields of Azeri, Iraq, Güneşli. It's oil fields. $8 billion in 1994 dollars today would be about 40-60 billion, maybe equivalent of that today. So why would international oil companies come to Azerbaijan? Azerbaijan just signed a ceasefire agreement in May of 1994, right? A couple of months before that. The territory was still occupied. There were refugees all over the place. There was a threat of civil war. And most importantly, if you look at the Caspian countries, Russia obviously has more oil. Kazakhstan has more oil. Iran obviously has more oil. Turkmenistan at least says they have more gas. They might, we don't know, but perhaps. So why do you come to Azerbaijan? Basically, among the countries of the Caspian, it would probably be the second smallest producer of oil after Turkmenistan. So why do you do that? There was a simple reason. Because Azerbaijan has looked at the long-term benefits of the region. And we looked and said, look, if we do not bring these contracts in today, if we do not open up the region, this will never change. We will always be the backyard of someone else. So what did we do? under leadership of our president, Heydar Aliyev, the decision was made to pioneer a practice, which is still not replicated anywhere in the region, that every agreement signed with an international oil company, PSA, production sharing agreement, has become the law of the land. How does it goes to the ratification in the parliament? Why did it happen? Because the Westerners came to the region of the former Soviet Union. They looked at the region and said, how can we sign an agreement if there is no notion of a sanctity of contract? How can, I mean, these countries exist for 2.5 years. How can we sign a 30 years agreement with them? So we have done everything possible to assure that the agreement we signed sticks. And in order to do that, what we've made it legislatively enforced PSA. Now, that's an interesting thing, because basically that PSA, production sharing agreement, will be enforced by the law. Initially, our Western partners were very happy, because that meant that it was very difficult for us to violate that agreement. Now they're less happy because it's more difficult for them to violate that agreement. But that goes both ways. That's an important part of it. So now look what happened. In 1994, Azerbaijan signed a 30 years agreement to develop Azeri-Chirag nationally. If you sign an agreement today, and we have signed a number of agreements following up, a significant number of agreements, I don't think anybody has so many PSAs in the region as we do. If you sign an agreement today, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it would be absolutely different from the one we signed in 1994. Nobody today would sign that agreement. The situation has changed, the price of oil has changed, Azerbaijan is stronger, oil companies are weaker. There are many, many factors. Yet, for 18 years and counting, out of 30, Azerbaijan has not changed its agreement. We have not backtracked at our word. If we would benefit financially if we do that. We would gain more money if we do that. But that's not how Azerbaijan works. Becoming an independent nation, a sovereign nation, takes certain responsibility. And that's what Azerbaijan does. I think that's an important thing to understand. So the reason I'm saying that is when my president says something, when Azerbaijan makes a statement, I urge you to listen to that. Because we do stick by our words. We don't just say things, we actually act on our words. That's one very important agreement, indication of that is, of course, the PSAs. From that PSA has come something which is very interesting as well. It's called Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline. You know, this is a pipeline which begins in Baku, transports our oil via Georgia to the Turkish port of Ceyhan in the open Mediterranean Sea. Nothing like that had ever happened before. I mean, think about that. An open Mediterranean port in the NATO allied nation of Turkey, with all the infrastructure available for the international energy supplies, what better can happen? I mean, even about over 30% of oil supplies going to Israel actually come from Ceyhan. Think about this. This is a major issue. So how did it happen? One very important thing is that, and I'll go back to it, Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan is not just a pipeline. It's a backbone of energy cooperation in the region. We often say, so what? It's oil, right? Well, the European Union, how did it begin? It was coal. And by the way, coal pollutes much more than oil. It began with a coal union, then it became a political union, and then it became something which basically expanded into the integration. What has happened today is a very interesting thing. Today, Azerbaijan state oil company is the largest taxpayer in the neighbor country of Georgia. Can you imagine? Azerbaijan is not the richest country in the world. It's not the richest country in the region. But we are the largest taxpayer in Georgia. We're contributing to the well-being and welfare of our neighbors. Not only to our own, to our neighbors. Azerbaijan is on the way to become the largest single investor in Turkey. I mean, it's easier to be taxpayer in Georgia than to be a larger investor in Turkey. Turkey is not an easy market to top in terms of investors. I mean, this country has a booming economy. People want to invest in Turkey. So Azerbaijan actually becomes the single largest investor in Turkey. How does that happen? In 20 years. And if you look back at the US foreign policy in the region, if you ask yourself a couple of years ago, What is the largest success of the foreign policy of the United States in the region? 5-10 years ago, people would say a color revolution in one country or another, maybe something else. Disarmament. Would anybody actually mention those things today? No. There's only one actual success on the ground. And that success is Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline. That's the single largest and the most effective success of the Western foreign policy in the region as a whole. And irreversible, as a matter of fact. How did that happen? It happened because Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Georgia worked together very successfully. The leadership of three nations have come together and worked voluntarily, not forced by anybody else, voluntarily, because they had a vision for the future of their nations, for their people. And that's how it happened. Which brings us to another point. Our region is very much interlinked with each other. Azerbaijan is one of the funny parts about Azerbaijan. People ask, "Are you Middle Eastern? Are you European? Are you Asian?" Well, probably it depends which embassy you serve at. Since I don't serve either in the Middle East, Europe, or Asia, I can look from the outside. I would say I'm all and I'm neither. The Republic of Azerbaijan is on a very southeast fringe of Europe, obviously, but it also could be considered in a very western frontier of Asia. We are people of the Caucasus, which basically means that we inherit everything from everybody, and that's a very open place. If those influences affect how we work and how we live and how we develop, I know that I've been following the debate in Turkey for a long time. Where is the success of Turkish policy? And I remember it was 1996, 1998, there was a very deep depression in Turkish foreign policy circles. Where do we succeed? European vacation doesn't work very well, Middle Easterners don't really like us. What happened? And one thing which really amazed me about this is that I kept reminding my Turkish brothers, look, you actually succeed so well in the Caucasus. Do not dismiss your own success. Turkey and the United States working together have produced the most successful projects and undertakings in the former Soviet Union, in the Caucasus, and hopefully in Central Asia. It's too early to say how well it works in Central Asia. But if there is any model of working together, Caucasus stands as a very positive. Not only in Azerbaijan. What Turks have done together with Americans, opening up airports. I mean, you go to everywhere in Georgia, it's all Turkish built, with support of Americans working together. That's how it should be. Actually, very often it's underestimated, overlooked part of a success, which is maybe good. Maybe, there was a good saying, no news, good news. Maybe we keep it that way. But there is another element to what Azerbaijani identity stands for. In 20 years, we have developed something, we have built on something which was there before. In 1923, the Turkish Republic was established and was considered to be the most successful example of the democratic, secular state in the Muslim world. I don't like the notion of the Muslim world, I would say, but it's predominantly Muslim population. And Turks have succeeded much more than anybody else. However, I would insist that the first republic in the Muslim world appeared in Azerbaijan in 1918. And there was many of those same people who were establishing the Azerbaijani Republic moved to Turkey. People like Ağaoğlu and others who actually became the part of the establishment of the Turkish Democratic Republic. But the seed which was planted in the Republic of Azerbaijan in 1918 became something which helped us to establish the Republic in 1991. Same flag, same anthem, and same emblem, and of course I think the same spirit. In 1919, the Republic of Azerbaijan granted everybody equal rights to vote, regardless of their religion, ethnicity, race, and gender. That's ahead of the United States of America, which is very interesting. Many people forget that. And when the Republic of Azerbaijan emerged as an independent. That is a very important civilization in photo. Actually, it was so stable that the most stable border of Iran and Turkey is actually between Iran and Turkey, which is kind of strange, because if you think about nations in the region, the nexus of instability and all this, that's actually a very stable border. Funny enough, it was fought over by two Turks. One was Shah Ismail Safavid, the one was, I think, Sultan Selim, and both were Turks, but apparently their personal ambitions were more important than the commonality of views. Azerbaijan is also right there on the fault line of Sunni and Shia views, Asia and Europe, Central Asia and the rest, Turan and Iran and all those things. So we're right in the middle of all this. If you establish your state in a place like that, it has to have several elements to that. One, you have to be by design, by definition, and I would insist by conviction, a tolerant society, an inclusive society. There is no other way. I mean, how do we survive otherwise? We have 25 years old Christian community, Jewish community. We have Christian communities which are probably not 2,500 years. 2,500 years. There was an old Armenian joke about that. That we have 3,000 years old church in Armenia. Of course, Christianity wasn't 3,000 years old. But those are important factors. So we have minorities. We have neighbors. We have people of different religions, faith, and ethnicity. Because that's not, and in a way, almost the word tolerance doesn't work here. Because it's not an issue of we tolerate someone. That's who we are. The Republic of Azerbaijan is in a way similar to the notion of the United States of America, and it's in a way similar to the notion, I would say, of the Republic in Turkey. The idea there is not that you don't walk around and say, well, I'm an Anglo-Saxon, or I'm an African, or I'm German born. You say, I'm an American, right? You could be Turkey, you could be an American. In the Republic of Azerbaijan, it doesn't matter what your ethnicity and religion is. What matters is that you are a citizen of the Republic of Azerbaijan. I'm very proud of that. Actually, this is very cool. For 20 years old country, that's very cool. I'm very impressed. I'll tell you why also. It has some practical benefits to that. When the great ecumenical leader, His Holiness Azadeh, that is the only place, the Republic of Azerbaijan, the predominantly Muslim republic, is the only place where the Pope of Rome can speak in the Caucasus. I mean, how cool is that? I mean, that's cool for us, but it's not really good for the rest of the Caucasus. I mean, it doesn't really bode very well. But think about this. Can you imagine? Where else would the Pope of Rome would be embraced by the Sheikh, by the Shias, Sunni? Airport. It was a bit of a breach of protocol. We had to pull him away because everybody was hugging him too much. But think about that. That's what Azerbaijan stands for. Azerbaijan is important not because we have oil, but because we know how to use our oil. Azerbaijan today became the first country to support EITI, which is the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. Azerbaijan was the first country in East Central Europe. Those are interesting things. So question stands now, where do we go from here? 20 years old, 2 decades is a very good element in your life, but it's a milestone, but what do you do after that? We have achieved quite a lot. We could sit back and relax. Especially now that we won the Eurovision. I mean, what else do we do? I mean, what else can we possibly do? You win Eurovision, we have women's soccer champion in Azerbaijan. I mean, what else can you possibly do? Probably opt for Olympics or something. I don't know. It's tough. That for Azerbaijan to do. And challenge is very simple. When the Republic of Azerbaijan emerged, it was born into war by the Russian neighbors. And what happened was that today, as a result of that war, about 20% of Azerbaijan's internationally recognized territory is occupied. We have There were one of the first camps which were provided to Azerbaijani refugees was provided by Turks. There is called Kızılay Turkish camps. I've seen all. Azerbaijan today has used its oil money. Azerbaijani, ethnic Azerbaijan, live under the leadership of a Georgian state, be a good loyal citizen, and be a good Azerbaijani. What's wrong with that? Unfortunately, our Armenian neighbors don't believe that. They believe that anywhere an Armenian lives is Armenian, and Georgia is booming. Why? What are Georgia's natural resources? Location, being between Azerbaijan and Turkey. That's what makes Georgia lucky. Armenia is also between Azerbaijan and Turkey. Look at the difference in decision making. Tell you who you are. Our friends in the region, we all know them, the United States, Europeans, Turks, Georgians, sometimes even Israelis. Who are the Armenians friends? Russians and Iranians? Anybody else? No. Fundamental issue is that how do you see your future? Is that a regional integration or self-isolation? What matters? Identity of ethnicity or an inclusive society as the world should develop? Those are fundamental issues which at 20 years we should ask. I mean, maybe when you're 20 years old, we all ask ourselves, how do that's natural. It's natural for a human being. It's natural for society. I think it's not too late for Armenia to answer that question in a way which could help it to become a part of the region. I don't want to go into details because everybody here, I think, knows the details. Now, on a very final point, I would say that the region is extremely rich in culture, diverse, and very promising. When people talk about Muslim world, they focus on something happened in Peshawar, or someone got killed in the Middle East. Most people don't know that most Muslims don't even live in the Middle East. You have this positive reservoir. A sign for me to stop talking. Thank you. Anyway, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
All right, any questions? So we have about 10 minutes to get the Q&A session. So any questions?
He was smart. He told me I don't have 10 more minutes to speak.
Just have one brief comment, Mr. Ambassador. I think it's an outstanding presentation, but you left out one key item that leads to the prominence of your country, and that is the personal dedication of the leadership in your country. I have met many leaders in many countries in my career, but the personal dedication that you and the other leaders have exceeds anything I've ever seen in any other country. And I think that's key to the fact that you are still there and growing and getting stronger.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Since it talks about personal dedication, I cannot comment. It's better observed from the outside. No more questions?
Any other questions?
Can you touch a little bit on the bilateral relations Azerbaijan has with the United States, your common agenda? Just brief us on the latest.
Thank you. This actually is a good question because over the last 20 years, we have developed a very strong partnership, I think, on many issues. It had four pillars initially. One is obviously security. There's also energy. There is also reform agenda and economic agenda as a whole. Of those four, it's interesting how, depending on the dominant views within Washington, they go up and down in significance. I think in the 1990s we were focused very much mostly on energy. Since, of course, September 11, Azerbaijan was among the very first nations to extend unconditional support to the United States. Security dominates. The reform agenda was there always. In fact, the United States have been very supportive in helping Azerbaijan and both Armenia and Georgia during the Council of Europe. That was very important for us. I think overall economic agenda still lags a little bit behind. I think we need to work on the areas outside energy cooperation to make sure that. But we have certain positives and certain concerns. One concern is obviously that that the United States, it's a fundamental concern, could have done more, and while trying to resolve the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict. We see that they're doing, but they're trying. The U.S. as a co-chair of the of the OEC Minsk group, the three co-chairs, Americans, French, and Russians. They're doing a good job. But at the end of the day, everybody knows if you date someone for 20 years, they will ask you for a marriage, or you have to split, right? We've been dancing for 20 years with the Russians, Americans, and French about this, the Minsk group, everything. There was not a single move. Not even a ring inside. No receipts. No visits to the jewelry shop. Nothing. I mean, I love the effort put in it, but at the end of the day, sometimes maybe less effort and more result would be useful. So this is where we have an issue that I think that. The other problem, of course, we have is that the Americans have, after a long delay, appointed an ambassador. President Obama made a recess appointment, and then they couldn't push him to the Senate confirmation. It's a domestic issue and all this, I understand. But it is, I mean, to speak about the dedicated agenda, importance of the region, a country next to Iran and all this, and then say we cannot appoint an ambassador there, that does send at least a confusing message. So at the end of the day, I'll put it that way, Azerbaijan has a very large and wide-ranging issues of an agenda, be it Economic Partnership Commission, be it cooperation in Afghanistan, be it many other bilateral energy security of Europe and all this. Thankfully, alhamdulillah, they become routine issues, which is good. That's exactly what we want. They go forward anyway. I mean, it's just ongoing dialogue. So there's nothing over-exciting about it. Maybe that's a good thing. But fundamentally, it is for the United States of America to decide whether it wants to be present in the region or not. Since Azerbaijan stands for 85% of South Caucasus economy, largest country in the South Caucasus, a major point for transit and all this. At the end of the day, it's for the United States, for our friends here to decide. If they want to be in the region, we're ready to support this effort. We always supported that effort, and the more they're committed to the region, the more we'll be committed to this partnership.
Okay, maybe the last question.
Mr. Ambassador, Foreign Minister Davutoglu, who we have actually met right in this room a few weeks ago, has been promoting zero problem with neighbors policy for years now. So it seems that no matter how hard they try, one neighbor, Armenia, they can't bring that number to zero with them. Problems still exist. It's a very sensitive issue for Turkey, and it's very closely watched in Azerbaijan. If you could elaborate on how Turkish-Armenian relations are perceived in Azerbaijani society, and what are some of the feelings there?
Thank you. First, I must say that Mr. Davutoglu's activity and vision has changed the region. It's interesting how it's a new outlook. So it's an interesting thing to watch. The zero problems with neighbors, I think, is a very positive vision. It's important. I would want to have that. My only question is that, as we just talked about, I'm getting too many dating parallels here. I know, idioms, but it takes two to tango. Okay, it's difficult to be zero problematic if someone has a laundry list of issues. But I think there was an underestimation on both sides, on all sides. Let's put it. There are more than two sides. For Turkey, in Turkey, it was I don't think Turkey fully understood the importance of the situation for Azerbaijan, the vital importance. I think maybe Azerbaijanis, in a way, took Turkey for granted, which I think also was an oversight on our side. I think Americans have looked at this in the short term. I can't speak for Armenians; it's difficult for me to understand. But let me just point on what are fundamental differences between the Armenia issue for Turkey and for Azerbaijan. For Turkey, the issue of Armenia is that of historic debate. It's an issue of what happened or did not happen, or do we really need to let history control our future and all this. And that's a very true and very correct debate. My issue, my personal, and I'm speaking for myself here now, is that Turks began speaking to the wrong Armenians. The Republic of Armenia was not part of Turkey, was not a part of domestic Turkish discussion. The Republic of Armenia is a country which actually physically occupies territories of Azerbaijan. For Azerbaijan, it's not an issue of debate over history. We have no historic grievances with Armenians. We have been our neighbors for a long time. It's our biggest grievances go quite recently. The issue for Azerbaijan is not whether we let past control our future. Our very simple issue is that this is international Azerbaijani territory. Just get out of it. That's all. So I think we had a bit of a difference in the sense that Turkey looked at the issue being informed by its own domestic debate on symbolism, while Azerbaijan looked at the issue from a very practical, pragmatic issue. How does this help or does not help to solve the conflict? The conflict is territorial. It's not really that ethnic, it's not symbolic, it's not historic, it's just because if we go too much in history, then Azerbaijanis would claim half of Armenia, Armenians would begin claiming all over Iran, and those kind of things. So we don't want that to happen. So I think that's where a certain misunderstanding has emerged. Of course, our American friends also underestimated how difficult it's going to be. They thought it would be easy. Jews and Palestinians are difficult to get together. We can't really solve the Kashmiri problem. Here's the easy one. And that's where we have a fundamental problem sometimes, is that you look narrowly. They looked narrowly at this particular border and took it out of context. By the way, this is always a problem. You cannot take Georgia out of context and have a revolution there. It affects everybody else, and then Russia reacts the way it does. You cannot take a border of Turkey and Armenia out of the context. So I think by now, I am very, very impressed by the way how Turkey and Azerbaijan have basically, maybe to somewhat loud and noisy inter-family consultation, have come to the point when they fully understand each other. I am grateful for what Turkey has done, for the leadership of Turkey, be it Prime Minister Erdogan, President Gül, or Mr. Davutoglu. I am glad that Azerbaijanis have been able to understood that in order to have Turkey understand the issue, you have to sit down and talk to Turks in a way that they understand it. And I think that what actually is the brotherhood is all about. That is that we shouldn't have any hidden agendas from each other. We shouldn't have any. We could have disagreements, but those disagreements should be discussed openly between two nations, two peoples, and come to. And you know what? The funny part of it is that at the end of the day, if you sit down and talk, it turns out that we didn't really have a disagreement. There was a bit of a miscommunication. But actually, I never saw a Turk, be it official or unofficial, from any political affiliation, who would say, "Oh, we don't care about the occupation of Azerbaijan. That's the good thing to happen on it." I mean, look what happened during the Khojaly commemoration in Istanbul. Millions of people came out. Not because they don't like Armenians. Not because they wanna attack Armenians. They came out because they love Azerbaijan. And you know why they love Azerbaijan? Because they love themselves. Because at the end of the day, that's the same thing. Mr. Taban told me added the Turkish language to my resume. The reason I don't have it in my bio because I don't make a difference between Azerbaijani and Turkish. It's the same language. Well, officially it's called Azerbaijani in Azerbaijan. So. But you know, Turks do not write I speak Azeri because, of course, they do. And we don't write that we speak Turkish. Of course, we do. I mean, that's what it is. So I think the way what we have today, the partnership between Azerbaijan and Turkey is even stronger as a result of this. And I hope that this conversation will continue between the two societies. But here's the last point I want to add, is that we need to, one of the things it taught us, that we cannot take each other for granted. We cannot just talk Hussein Bey to myself, embassy to embassy, minister to minister. We have to speak society to society, NGO to NGO, journalist to journalist, driver to driver, everybody. Everybody in Turkey and Azerbaijan should talk to each other. They should recognize their brothers and sisters on both sides. And then the funny part of it is that when you talk to each other, you understand how close we are. How many of you have been to Azerbaijan? You've been in it. If you're in a Turk, it is, you don't feel any different. It's the same music, the same Tarkan. If you don't like Tarkan, it's very annoying. If you like Tarkan, it's very pleasant. But it's everywhere, you know. I would say that Beyti kebab is better in Azerbaijan. Iskandar is probably better in Turkey. But it's the same culture underlying issue. You don't have it anywhere else. No other two nations are as close as Turks and Azeris. So I think we should celebrate that.
Okay, thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
That's what it's called, the two states and one nation. And we have a little gift, His Excellency.
Thank you.
So,
Oh, that's good. This is very nice.
Turkish coffee.
You copy it? This is very good. I love this. This is good. Yeah, I have to confess that this is a very expensive version of a cheaper Turkish person I use in my office for coffee. So, thank you. It's very kind of you. Yes. Yes, and last time I was here, which was, by the way, the second day of my appointment,
yes,
of my coming to Washington, I came here and we saw that the bench, the Azerbaijani book wasn't as rich with books, so we decided to bring. This is a book about Azerbaijan, and this is a book about Azerbaijani cultures. So I hope you enjoy that. Thank you.
Now please enjoy the food and the exit to the rooftop over there. Our second.
Can we get a picture together?
I'm too fat for this.
Sí, ya, primero.